do these things. So is this not something new, it just hasn't been enforced in Irondale?
Something that just hasn't been enforced, but all municipalities do this. When I go to the revenue conferences, I mean, you got some cities that are rougher than Irondale, especially when you get down to the Gulf Coast, like Gulf Shores and Orange Beach and all of those different places where they're used to having these special events. I mean, even Birmingham. I mean, I met one of the Birmingham revenue officers, and when they have the Magic City Classic, they are out there at the Magic City Classic going around to all of the vendors, checking to see if they have a license. If they don't have a license, they can shut them down, or they can go ahead and purchase the license. And then they're there to make sure that they collect the fees as well. So it's nothing new. It's just that we've started to enforce it. And one of the things that I wanted to do is make sure that I said something about it tonight, because I just wanted to be able to give clarity to it and help everybody to understand that we're not picking on anybody. Because I heard the complaints when we had the event at Trios with the veterans. So I decided to go up there and to see exactly what was going on. Number one, those people were there to make money. If I had a booth there, I was not generating that money to give it to the veterans. They were there to make money for themselves. So a lot of the individuals that participate in these shows and events, they understand and they know what is going on, but it just gave the appearance that we were up there ripping the veterans off because they were doing a good deed and they were raising all this money. But people also forgot that the city paid $3,500 for advertising for that event. So we put money into the event, but yet we were accused of ripping the people off at the same time. So that's what really happened from our side. We was just there to be able to enforce the ordinances that we have on the book for special events.
So those vendors didn't give a percentage at all to the veterans?
Not to my knowledge.
Yeah, of course, along those lines, like last year, that Jazz in the Park thing, I had some friends that was a vendor, and they thought they came under the umbrella of whoever that promoter was. I don't know who the promoter was, but I tried to tell them they probably didn't. They probably needed a license, but so they did need some type of license.
Yeah, last year when we had Jazz in the Park, like I said, you can do it two ways. You could do it where the event promoter comes in and he decides that I'm going to go ahead and put a bond up for everybody, or I'm going to have everybody to come down and get their own individual license. A lot of them like for the people to come down and get their own individual license because they don't want to put their money on the line, and then they are now responsible for making sure that they collect everything. So what they like to do is to come in and get their license for the event, but then send the individual down to the city to be able to get their license so they're not responsible for it. So yes, if that individual had a food truck or was selling things up at Jazz in the Park, and we will be up there on July the 20th as well to make sure that everybody has their licenses as well. But they should come down to the city and go ahead and just go ahead and
It
take
seems
care of
like
it.
it would make more sense for the promoter, because he can contact the vendors and let them know what's required for them to even have a space. And that can be included in the requirements, as opposed to when, you know, at the event. In other words, if he knew he's responsible, then he would be responsible for making sure that if they were gonna have a spot, that they had what was required, wouldn't they?
Yes, a lot of these promoters, this is not their first dance.
Right.
So they know it, but if you don't say anything to them about it, I mean, I hate to say it, they're not gonna say anything to you about it as well. So that's why we have individuals now that are at the events to be able to do that. Like I said, I wanna be able to rewrite it so that we don't have to have people at the events, but we can put everything on the promoter. Let the promoter come down and pay a bond, let them be responsible for collecting everything. If they don't collect everything, then they will lose their bond. But it won't be where it seems as if the city is up there going after each vendor.
Right.
But we'll just leave it up to the individual that's putting on the event, make sure that the bond is a reasonable amount, that would encourage him to make sure that he gets all the paperwork and gets all of the taxes that need to be remitted to the city, and to move from there. So we'll see how that work out. And if you all give me any feedback, I would, really appreciate that.
I just think it can give the appearance as if you're picking or that, you know what I mean? If you're up there at the event, it just, to me, it would kind of,
Perception is
but
reality.
do they do that, I mean, but they, at the event, it seems like that ought to be ahead of time, and that the promoter ought to be responsible for that.
Well,
Because
the
he invites the vendors, right?
Well, if the vendors came in 20 days before the event,
But I
then we
mean,
wouldn't
if
have
he-
that problem, but a lot of times they don't.
But if he was
They don't come in.
responsible and told them, if you don't come in 20 days before the event, you don't have a, I mean, I think that's kind of the place where I'm headed. I'm not saying we can do that overnight, but it makes sense to me, and that way you don't have to be at the event trying to take care of that kind of business.
That's true. Yeah.
Well, the main thing is to set up a set of rules that everybody has to abide by, and if they don't abide, they're not in. I mean, if you want a promoter to go and run the show, that's all well and good, and he has to set up rules to his vendors that your money has to be in here no later than 20 days before, or you're not here.
Yes, that's why I would like to move the responsibility to whoever's putting on the event. Let them be responsible, for all of that.
Yeah.
And like you stated, Cal, if they don't work it out, then that's on them. But the city has already got all of their stuff on the front end.
How have
so
we done this in the past with Whistle Stop? Has there been any promotional fees or anything?
Let me
It's
take,
fine, it's fine, it's kind of along the same lines.
well, in the past, Whistle Stop has always been a city event. But if you were at the last council meeting, we were told that Whistle Stop is not a city's event, that it is put on by a nonprofit organization, and that they also own the naming rights to it as well. So in the past, because the city has been a partner, the city has provided fire, police. We also, I think, Craig, you can correct me if I'm wrong, we paid $4,000 in fireworks last year as well. So because there's been a partnership between the two groups in the past, the city still requested that Chris provide us with a list of the vendors as well. So he had to provide a list of the vendors who participated in the Whistle Stop, and also to make sure that they brought in their taxes too at the end of the
All right,
event.
did
Now,
they?
I don't think we made him put up a bond at that time, but I know that he was supposed to submit a list or submitted a list with the vendors so that we could identify those individuals that may owe the city some taxes for participating in the event.
All right, did he provide this information?
Did he provide it?
Yes.
I said yes, he provided it.
Oh, he did provide it.
Mhm.
So, all right, so this was a working agreement, so to say, unwritten, I guess, agreement with Whistle Stop and the city.
No, what I'm telling you is actually in the city's ordinances. It's already there. It's just not being enforced or was enforced up until this year. But we haven't even written anything new. We're just enforcing those things that are already on the books.
So this wasn't collected on in the past?
I can only speak from since I've been here in 2012. So I don't know what they did before I got here, but like I stated, in the past, this has always been a city event. We were informed last week that this is not a city event. So the only thing that I can say from my point of view is that we're going to enforce the ordinances that we have on the books. If it's Whistle Stop, if it's no stop, half stop, or whoever it may be,
Short stop.
we're going to enforce those ordinances across the board fairly and equitable to everyone.
All right.
I don't know.
No, so how, does the city raise more money off of fees or the taxes?
For what?
Well, there's the license fees that say there's 100 vendors showing up for an event. So it's $50 for a year-long license that they're going to use one time. And then on top of that, they're going to pay a 4% sales tax on their total sales for the day. So does the city make more money off the fees, or do they make more money off the taxes?
I haven't been able to actually to analyze that to see which one produces the most income.
Mhm.
But now that we're having these events and we are enforcing what we have on, as ordinances, now we can begin to run some numbers to be able to tell, is it coming from sales tax or is it coming from the fees? I mean, I can say now from the last two events, and I'm just speaking from visually looking at the events when I went up there, we probably made more money off of the issuance of the license than we did off of the collection of the sales tax. And this is just me doing a visual and walking around to the events so far that we've had since we've been enforcing those rules. Greg?
I can speak briefly to what Ron said with Whistle Stop in the past. Actually, by far, the majority of the money came from the fees to get space, and that went back to whoever was running the festival, whether it be the foundation way back when, the Exchange Club, individuals, and that goes back into the festival for the next year. That doesn't come to the city. But the reason for that is there are so many people, such as politicians or religious or charitable organizations, who maybe pass out a keychain, but they don't sell anything. And therefore, the majority of money that comes in for the whole festival is from the booth rentals. For one thing, it's always been double for politicians, like whatever it is for, say, the Gideons, a politician would charge double for the same space. That has not been a money maker for the city because it goes back into the festival itself. I don't really think we make very much either way. With probably the best thing we've actually made has been the sales tax off the wine and beer place once we started having one of those, as far as the sales tax there, to be honest. But James, if I could address very quickly your recommendations for making some changes. Just being a council member, I think what you said about $25 per event rather than $50 for the whole year, I think that's a change I would definitely agree with. And also what you said about making the promoters liable. And the reason for that is, and this is another perception issue, if we have one or two city employees in revenue or someplace out on a site on Saturday or Sunday getting overtime at what they make, frequently we don't even collect what we pay them. So therefore, it would look better from the standpoint of making the promoter post the bond. I think you've got the right idea there totally.
Well, thank you, Greg. So, yes, we always hear the thing, no new taxes. But as you all can tell, we have to increase taxes to be able to keep up with the services that we provide.
Have there been any records at all kept in the last 20-some years about Whistle Stop?
And I wasn't here, I mean, I have to be honest.
I know, you weren't here for that.
I mean, I'll try to find out.
That would make a bit of a precedent for the future, or should.
Well, I don't have the answer to that, so I'll have to check and get back to you.
Okay.
If there isn't, it should be a requirement. If you can't grandfather it, then it should be from this point forward. We need, concise outline, what happened, money that came in, money expenses, just for historical and to do future events.
That's true. Well, we'll look at all of those things. Like I said, I appreciate you all sharing with me about that. And also, if you have any more information that you want to share about Whistle Stop, you can just send it to jstewart@cityofirondale.org. And when we are creating the new ordinance, hopefully we can be able to incorporate all the things that you all shared with me tonight too.
Well, I just have a question and also a comment. Also, feel free to report any issue or concern you have on the city's website. There's a place you can go, fill out a brief form, voice anything, and we'll get it to the appropriate person. Question to Mrs. Stewart. Being that you are, I guess, entrenched after a year or so in this job, what do you see the biggest challenge financially and fiscally for the city?
You want my honest opinion or my political answer?
Honest.
I'm not a council person anymore, I guess I can, so I'm on the other side. So, okay, well, my answer to that is that the difficulty that I see since I've been in this position for the last year is that you have two different timetables. Politicians' timetable is usually 4 years, and you can really shorten it to 3 years. Because in the 4th year, everybody's running for office. You're not gonna get anything passed, because nobody wants somebody to get a leg up on them, and everybody's trying to build their resume. I can say that because I've been there. Now that I'm on the other side, I see that we have a different timetable. The employees realize that they're gonna be here 25 to 30 years. So their look is long-term. The council look is more short-term. And the problem is, how can we work to a point that we can combine both of those worlds? I have employees that ask me when stuff show up on the agenda, well, how can they spend $50,000 for this, but I'm back here working with tools that are 20 years old? Or I'm driving a truck that has 200,000 miles on it, but the council just approved $20,000 in unbudgeted items. So the employees have a different perspective than what you have from your leadership, because they are looking at a longer horizon. So they're looking at, hey, can you keep my health care down? When are we gonna get a raise? I mean, I've been hearing that ever since we started the budget cycle, that, hey, I heard we're gonna get a raise of 5%, 10%, 15%. I said, no, that's not true. But that's what I've seen, Mr. Washington, since I've been here in this last year, is how do you bridge that gap? Because you have two different philosophies that are working apart from each other instead of working together. So as soon as we can identify the answer to that, and if any of you all have that answer, I promise you, it'll make my job a whole lot easier. Ms. Frazier?
Talk a little bit more about the unbudgeted items. I was trying to get a feel for, do you have a certain limit to how many unbudgeted or how much unbudgeted expenditures you're gonna make, or is it just whatever?
Well, I had a good conversation with Councilor Sanderson today, and he has recommended that our next town hall meeting deals with the financial policies that we have as a city, so that everybody will understand when they can spend money and when they can't spend money. Now, we just passed some financial policies that says that you can only pass an unbudgeted item unless you reduce an expense item or you identify new revenue. In the past, it was like, if you could line up 3 votes, if it's something that you wanted to do, and if it was unbudgeted, we just go ahead and pass it and deal with it September 30th. But now we have a policy that says that before you can pass an unbudgeted item, you gotta find the revenue, or you gotta reduce an expense to offset that expense.
And that's the way it should be. It has to be that way in my house.
Because if that's the case, then, well, it depends on where they're reducing it. Are they are they able to reduce it in the area where these 20 to?
So they can only reduce expenses in their department.
Oh,
So they can't cross over into admin and cut admin, or I can't go into the fire department's budget and take $20,000 out of there, but we can only do it within our budget. And you had a question?
I had a comment, really. You know, I've thought, you know, I've come to the council meetings for a long time, and I have come upon that same dilemma that you just talked about short-term goals versus long-term goals. And my question is, has anybody ever brought that up to the council? Because maybe they haven't thought about it.
I don't think I can't remember having a discussion with them about it. But at the present time, I am working with a group to help the city to be able to develop a comprehensive plan. Because if we had a comprehensive plan, it really doesn't matter who's in office.
That's right. There has to be some continuity.
Because that plan stretches for 20 years. So whoever is elected come in knowing that this is the plan, and everybody's working towards moving that plan. So I think that once we can get a comprehensive plan, which that plan is really built by the citizens.